feel like we haven't talked that much lately. I've been out of town last week, and then
That's
this week
right.
has just been like 100 meetings that I've had. So just been like trying to catch up. But what you working on? Anything interesting?
Yeah, gosh, I guess since we last talked, I put a guide to the best photographers in Yosemite up on my site.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I guess I posted about it a little bit in the group, but the backstory there is that I used to have this guide that ranked really well for Yosemite elopement photographer.
Yep.
And then I think it was a year or so ago, I was just like, you know what? I don't like traveling to Yosemite to shoot elopements.
Yep.
And uh, further evidence by like the 4 hour line stories that you're seeing right now to get into Yosemite. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so crowded. And like, I didn't want to deal with the popular spots. The road is closed to get to them. So you have to like,
Yep.
the planning was just becoming a mess.
Were you getting inquiries for Yosemite?
Yeah, totally. And I've probably shot 2 or 3 a year every year.
Mm-hmm.
I just it was not I did not look forward to those trips, and that really bummed me out because it's a really
Right.
cool place. Um, and
It is the
so
right thing for someone.
totally, yeah. If you live closer, or if
Yeah.
you're like van lifing or something, and
Yep.
that's your thing. I don't I'm not negative about anybody that wants to shoot there, but
Yep.
it wasn't for me.
Makes sense.
Um,
But you have that ranking, so what'd you do
right.
with it?
And so, well, my rash decision last year was just like I deleted all the content,
Mhm.
left the post live, and just had like a heading that just said like I no longer shoot in Yosemite. If you'd like to contact me about Oregon elopements, click here. I don't know how many people really were wowed by that and like decided to book me, but
Yeah, probably not.
none. So like a week or two ago, I was like, you know what, I could probably do better.
Hmm.
Um, the intent behind people searching for Yosemite elopement photographer is that they're trying to find probably a list of really great photographers
Yeah,
or
they want to
find a
compare some
photographer.
people at least.
Exactly.
Figure
So
out who serves that area. It's kind of tough, right? Because I mean,
yeah,
every place is sort of like this, but Yosemite being a national park, it's like most people are not going to live in Yosemite.
right.
They're going to serve the area, but like, what's the closest city? Like, how do you search? You have to kind of
Yeah.
search it by Yosemite. Pretty much, like you're basically asking, what are some photographers who most likely you want to know have worked there before and kind of know the ropes and like can help me through making this happen and know where to take me and answer all my questions about getting married there and
Right.
someone they want to probably look at a couple of options.
Yeah. So I put a post in like a popular elopement photography group and just asked for people that are local to Yosemite and would it like to be featured. And then I kind of vetted all of their websites to just see like, have they actually shot there? Like, is
Right.
there proof that they can do this? And like
Yeah.
information guides that looked actually well researched and from personal experience, not just like regurgitating what they found on some other guide that
Hmm.
was from somebody else that had never been there. And it was surprising. I think like 60 or 80 people said that they were local to Yosemite and would love to
Wow.
be included. And then I'd like look and they'd be like, local meaning you want to go to Yosemite, like, uh, or like experience meaning that you, I don't know, stole somebody else's stylized photo from that. Like it was, there were very few. I think I ended up with 6.
Wow.
And so I curated that, but I'm really happy with that guide. Like
Hmm.
the 6 photographers that I picked are like really good and have good work and a variety of types of work. And like, I trust that I can make that recommendation and that I feel good about it and that the people on the other end are going to get a good photographer. So
Right. And that, I mean, that's great because, like you said earlier, before they would hit that page, you're like, I'm not shooting here. And then that's kind of a bad experience with your brand. But now
yeah,
it's something you are going to take anyway. And they are going to still be served well, finding exactly what they were looking for. And will they hire you in the future? Maybe not, probably not. But there's
yeah,
still, it's a positive experience with your brand. It's something that other photographers that you're recommending there are going to appreciate and maybe return the favor whenever someone's looking in Oregon and they don't want to travel and they know that
yeah,
you're local. And then, who knows, the people who ended up booking someone else might still recommend you on your website because it's so informative and helpful and not biased or whatever. Like they might really, that positive experience goes a long way, I think.
for sure. Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, I think I also did the same with my Big Sur guide.
Mhm.
I think I photographed my last Big Sur elopement that I want to shoot. Like,
Okay.
great elopement, was fun, but once again, travel for that is not as much like these places, Big Sur and Yosemite, are somewhat remote by
Right.
modern standards. Like you have to
Mhm.
drive hours to get to them, and there's no real city there. And like,
Right.
I don't know. It's just not what I want to do.
That makes sense. Well, we've got a
Yeah.
couple people watching. If you're here and you're watching live, feel free to ask any questions. Today, we're just hanging out and chatting. It's sort of like a podcast episode, except without a topic. We're just going to chat
Nice.
about some things we've been looking at. But really, the point is for you guys to get to ask questions. If you want us to look at your website, if you have some question about an SEO strategy or want us to look some keywords up for whatever, anything like that, just let us know. We are happy to help with anything. And so, yeah, just leave a comment here on the video. We'll check that out. What else? Tell me about Caldera and Sightsee and working on WordPress stuff. Like anything interesting or new that you've learned about working with Cadence, or
Yeah.
any news on WordPress or anything that you are excited about there?
Totally. It's been a week of mostly bug fixing, and like I really wanted to make sure that the blog posts examples that we have in the theme were laid out exactly how I would do a blog post.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming up soon is going to be I'm making a video on my workflow for making a blog post and like how easy you can do like a portfolio type blog post using WordPress, how it's meant to be used,
Mm-hmm.
and not using like any third party tool. Like
Right.
I just want to show people that you don't need to use something like Blogstomp to make your diptychs or like anything
Yeah.
like that.
I
Like,
mean,
don't.
I say new, but since the block editor, or at least a few versions after they released the block editor, the image options are pretty good. I like the fact
Yeah.
that, especially if you're using a contained width blog post, like let's say you're 1200 pixels wide on your blog post, you can do wide, which like takes up that entire place with no margin, right? And then you can do full width, which takes up all the way to the edges of the screen, which can look really cool if you use it
Yeah.
correctly. And then I don't know how you're doing it, but personally, I'm using the native WordPress columns block pretty often to put in. You can put in 2 columns and put a photo side by side that way. Just using I like that I can use just the default WordPress blocks and still
Yeah.
get a really nice layout. Now, if I'm trying to do something a little bit more fancy, I might use Cadence Advanced Gallery block and then do something that's like Masonry Grid or something like that, which it opens up even more options. Of course, you can do like sliders or like anything like you want to just display your photos. But just with the default WordPress, being able to do like a full width of your content, a wide width, which is slightly larger and takes up the margins, full width of the page, 2 columns or 3 columns with just the column block, already you've got
Yeah.
a pretty wide variety of options that are very easy to use. What else are you
Totally.
doing besides those things?
I mean, the only other real difference would be I wanted to just show people how to use the gallery block, which is if you grab 2 images from Finder or File Explorer, drag them into WordPress, it will make it a side-by-side image gallery, which is so nice and so easy. And we
Do you
just
find that
the only
default is that the default WordPress gallery block?
yeah.
And does it look okay for you most of the time?
Yeah, so we had to make one customization, and that was to the gap.
Right.
And so we just made the gap match the Cadence standard gap
Mhm.
between blocks. And once we did that, it's just like smooth sailing.
It looks nice, huh? One thing I will say is I've used it to. Uh, I do like to sometimes have them as individual images, and I will, because of doing things like what I was just saying, like using the full width or the using columns and kind of customizing it a little bit. But I will usually drop them in as a gallery and then use the convert to images button because you can upload them all at once instead of having to do it one at a time.
That's incredible, for sure. Yeah, so there's, I mean, so many tricks there, and I think maybe today I'll make that how to like the blogging tips for, and it's not even using Cadence. Like the only Cadence block we use there is the table of contents.
Yeah.
The rest is just standard WordPress, so
Which is
it's
nice.
really cool.
It's great for future proofing on WordPress. You know that stuff's going to stay, and the support for it in core is going to stay similar, or they will make sure that they, make it backwards compatible for any blocks that are in the I mean, I say that, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
very good for not having to worry about, if I don't want to use Cadence anymore and I take it away, what's it going to look like? That's something I want to test. Have you done much
Yeah.
testing on that? Like using Cadence blocks pretty
Yeah.
significantly and then removing the plugin?
Totally. It's decent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the last time I did that, but like things like the advanced image block turning into images,
Mm-hmm.
yes. Advanced text turning into either headings or paragraph text also worked. So
Okay.
overall, like, yeah, not bad at
I
all.
wonder what row layouts and stuff do.
That would be really interesting.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, we'll have to test it a
Um,
little bit because I would like to be able to answer that for people pretty specifically. But
right. But I just remember thinking like this was not bad. Like
right, it's
this
not
is
like
like
Elementor or Divi.
right.
It's like Divi where you have 1,000
Divi.
short codes, and yeah, it's gonna do something that's pretty default. Um, okay, we got someone asking a question here. It's not coming through with your name, so I'm seeing it as Facebook user on this side. I'll have to log into Facebook and look. I have a number of various blogs that bring in a bunch of traffic to my site, but for some of these, it's very broad traffic. For example, I post on how to make your elopement special, brought in 796 clicks from Google in the past 28 days. Would love any tips on capitalizing on broader traffic to get people to convert into clients, booking, or capitalize on traffic in other ways. I'll give a quick thought on that. I think that when you're saying in other ways, I think that's a key part of this. A lot of people they'll shy away. That's Malachi, by the way. Hey, Malachi.
Yeah.
Um, and a lot of people just get very hung up on my traffic needs to convert to clients. And I think part of your content strategy should be to draw in clients that are going to book you, but not the whole thing. In fact, there are two other major angles that I would like to consider. One is in industry content, right? So I am going to basically write to my peers who are also photographers, and we might talk about things that are important to being a photographer. I think that's pretty important, not necessarily essential, but I think that it's a very natural thing to include on a photography blog. And I like to see that kind of thing. In those cases, the purpose is to network, it's to create connections in the industry, it's to find out who's who. What Dylan was doing with the Yosemite guide, he added 6 people. It's like you have to know where to find those people. And I think that being part of the industry by putting something on your own site in a place that you owned, that you can curate, that people can comment, I think that's a great idea. But the other thing is trying to attract backlinks, trying to build authority, trying to show that you are a popular, authoritative site, right? Someone that has content that is useful to visitors. Whenever Google sees that, I don't know how I should say this, because like, is Google really tracking exactly how many people are going to your site? Probably not. I mean, they're going to have some data on that based on a lot of different ways that they collect data. But a site that's popular is they're going to try to make that determination somehow, right? How can we tell if this site is popular, in demand? Do people want to see this particular site? And I think that having traffic to the site increases all of the signals that they might use to determine that. It's a little bit fuzzy. Like I can't tell you exactly how they're going to determine it, but I can tell you that getting more people there is more likely to get it shared. It's more likely to get it linked to. It's more likely to get interactions on your post. It's more likely that someone's going to save it and give it to someone who needs it later. Everyone who visits those pages, something like how to make your elopement special, they don't necessarily need to become a client. They don't necessarily need to even refer you. If they um, have a positive experience with your content, and then later they might want to include it in something that they're writing. I had that happen to me recently. I was just looking at my trackbacks in WordPress, and someone had mentioned Corey did a roundup of 100 YouTube channels and found that blah blah blah. And they were like citing my research that I had done and published on a blog post, and it's 2 years later or something like that, and there's some random person writing a blog post, found it and decided to link to it. That stuff happens all the time. That's why, like, people talk about natural link building. The way you do natural link building is to make helpful content that people go to, and the links will happen by people mentioning it. So I think that's one really important thing. So if you're thinking about that, there are some ways you can be more intentional about trying to attract those links or getting those people to link to you, right? So maybe you specifically ask for them to cite something or link to you or share this on their blogs. There's some cases where that makes sense, but even just thinking like, what's the type of thing that I can write in an article about how to make your elopement special that someone else who might be writing about elopements might want to use in their article? So thinking through that and thinking what you might include there could be helpful. What else, Dylan? What would you do to um, capitalize on, if you, especially something like that specific article? What do you do to going this route of like link building and trying to attract other industry leaders and give them something valuable and maybe putting goodwill into the universe? What do you do with that? Like, how do you be more intentional about that?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think it would be really interesting to try to figure out the percentage of the audience that is other elopement photographers and the percentage of the audience that is people planning their elopements.
Yeah.
But I think having a section that at least referenced other photographers that might be looking at this like this guide as a reference for maybe something they want to create for their site or the type of content they want to create for their site. And then maybe having some resources that help them or at least point towards them in some way. If I was being sneaky, I would maybe have some internal link, make sure that you have a decent number of internal links in that content for when people copy you, and they might copy those internal links. They might become backlinks. I've seen that happen. Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, good.
I just had a thought. Maybe if I had something like that that starts ranking, I don't know what your piece of content looks like there, Malachi, but you might even kind of shift the focus slightly. So, for example, what if on an article about how to make your elopement special, what if you gave 10 examples of couples that you've worked with and something they did to make the elopement special and wrote out, part of a story for each one? That becomes something that when you share it, it's almost something that wants to go viral, right? Like people want to talk about, look at these stories of how these people did it. People want those specific examples. And so if you can put in your examples over time and then start sharing that to other people who might want to, there's a link to the article.
Perfect.
Anyway, that kind of thing, I think could, if you decide that's the direction you want to go with it, is get this shared more, then like leaning towards examples might be really smart. Let's see how to make your elopement special. Click it from here.
Nice. I'm trying to get the link to open properly. There we go.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah. Okay, sharing screen. Okay, can you see Shell Creek? There we go. Sweet. All right, so the best ideas for how to make an elopement special and unique. For this, what are your thoughts, Corey? I would consider simplifying this table.
Overwhelming. Like I
yeah, exactly. So I think having just the categories of the types of events or ways you're going to make it unique, not listing them specifically. Cool. Yeah, good internal linking. Although one thing I'm noticing is that the internal link anchor text, like this one's stand-up paddleboarding, but it's linking to the Ridgeway, Colorado adventure elopement. Now this one might include stand-up paddleboarding, but that would be so much more powerful if this was like the stand-up paddleboarding elopement or something. All of this is facing the potential clients that are planning elopements so far. I think the intro could have been a little bit longer or had more narrative. The photos and examples are great, though. This is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, saying it's already ranking and getting clicks, it's just a matter of like, what do you do from here to really take full advantage of
Yeah.
the fact that it's getting clicks if it's not turning into inquiries?
I guess it also like, yeah, it's hard for me. Like, I wonder how much of that is that you're not able to properly track where people found you. Like, I'm assuming this is probably one of your higher, like, as far as total number of clicks generated from Google, this might be one of your higher pieces of content. Um, are people, like, are you asking them where they found you? Um, are they answering that truthfully? Or is your analytics even able to track that properly? Um, it's hard because I feel like some people might see this and they might remember Shell Creek or they might bookmark you, and then like in 6 months they might actually be figuring out what photographer uh, they're going to book, and they might come from your Instagram, or they might just come directly to your site, and they might forget that the original way they found you was this article.
Yeah, for sure that's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't know if I like just. Do you like these pricing CTAs?
Mm, I don't know. It's tough. Like if someone's searching, I'm curious about which queries are really driving traffic to this. If it's, if literally how to make your elopement special, I feel like they are at an early planning stage where uh, they're not quite ready to book a photographer, but maybe they would be ready to uh, have a conversation if you're, I don't know if Malak, I don't know if you're one of the ones that like offers some planning with, is that part of what you do? If so, like getting them to a call where you can talk about some of the details from this post might be a great sort of call to action, right?
Yeah.
As you say, things like, I've worked with people who do all kinds of interesting things to make their elopement special, and I'd love to talk to you about more of the things that I've seen or kind of hear what you're looking for and work. If you have that sort of thing where you do planning and you can get them on a consultation or that kind of call, maybe that would be something here. But view elopement packages might not be bad either. They could be interested, and maybe the packages give the details about planning and whether that's offered and what's included and everything.
Yeah. You know what I'd do? I would use Cadence Pro. I would make a hooked element. It would be a little section that has a different color background. It has a photo of Malachi, and it has a more personal call to action that, much like what you said, but it would just say like, "Hey, I'm an elopement expert. Let me help plan your elopement. Let's chat more," or something like that. And then I would just
Yeah.
be inserting that short code in place of this button.
Yeah. But you would have that like multiple times on the page?
I think so. I think as annoying as that might come off, I think, and maybe have it say like continue reading right below it or something, or like not ready yet, keep reading this article. I don't know,
Yeah.
something fun. Uh, It's not too like serious, but it's putting in their mind that like, look how great this content is. Like, if you want more, we should just chat. Like, let's talk about your exact needs. But yeah,
I think this is also something you can use if you're pitching something you want to write for someone else, or if you want to be on a podcast. This could be a
yeah,
topic that you could cover, or if you want to speak at some sort of event around elopements, this would be a topic that you could cover. So this kind of content can also just demonstrate expertise in a way that lets you leverage the proof that you've written this, that you have some ideas, and then it makes it more likely for people to say, okay, yeah, this is interesting. We could just basically talk about this on the podcast episode, and
totally.
that's it. So that's another way to leverage this potentially.
Yeah, I dig it. I mean, overall, this post shows the breadth of your work and your portfolio and your experience. Like, people are doing all sorts of different activities here, and you've documented them all really well. It's pretty cool.
Who else is here? Anybody have any specific SEO questions? Now we've got people coming in and out. I can see the number going up and down. But
Nice.
if you're here, say hello or ask any questions you have. Let us know what you want us to talk about next. We'll stick around a little bit longer and chat.
Yeah. Have you been doing any SEO projects lately, Corey?
A little bit. Mostly, I've still been doing planning and stuff for the membership and really trying to figure out a sort of custom CRM for tracking members, their goals, and their progress. That's kind of what's been on my mind the most. And I've been kind of exploring sketching, like just trying to figure out how I want it to look and how I want it to flow, because it's like I have the ideas, but it's tough to like nail it down to here's what I want to accomplish and here's where I can get this data. And so a lot of my stuff's been thinking more about that. I started a Pokemon specific Instagram, and
Amazing.
so I made a little website to go along with that. And I was looking at some of the keywords that are relatively low competition and pretty good
Cool.
volume with affiliate potential. And I'm like, I need to publish a few things. Might as well do it.
Yeah.
Like some things, like if I'm collecting Pokemon cards in a binder, like best binder for Pokemon cards is pretty low difficulty, pretty high volume, and the results that are there are the typical affiliate BS where it's like
Yeah.
you've never touched that binder. And so like having it, ordering 4 or 5 and having them in hand and like comparing them with detailed photos, that kind of thing would go a long way, and that would rank really fast probably. So
Amazing.
I'm probably going to try
I'm
a couple
doing.
of those things just for fun.
Yeah, I think I reached a point with my car affiliate site that I'm frustrated by the lack of affiliate opportunities. I don't really want to push the junk that's available on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the higher end companies don't have affiliate programs.
Yeah.
I applied too early to the one major car affiliate program, and they denied me. And I might try to reapply, but the traffic's going well. But I'm just not motivated because the actual ways to monetize are pretty hard.
Yeah.
So I'm starting a new affiliate site. It's
Okay.
going to be
What's this one?
fun. I don't know if I want to mention the niche yet,
Okay.
but it's going to be like, so I looked at one competitor and I was browsing the internet for actually looking for a product for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is an affiliate site. I'm going to see like what they're ranking for in Ahrefs. And it's a janky site. I mean, I could do this in less than a weekend, but they're ranking for I think 70,000 clicks a month,
Wow.
and it's about 18 months old. And I think it's like Ahrefs estimation is like, I don't know, 12 to 16 grand a month or something in value of like Google ad revenue for what they're ranking for.
Wow.
And the competition's fairly low. The domain rating, as much as this stuff doesn't matter, domain rating for that site's like 4.
Mm-hmm.
No significant backlinks.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. So I might have a weekend project ahead of me.
Yep. Have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, same for me. Like the reason I thought about building something for the Pokemon site, it's actually kind of the opposite. It's like I'm not looking
Yeah.
at something where I'm seeing an opportunity. In fact, there's a lot of great sites out there, and I don't necessarily want to get into all the ways to monetize, but it's like I'm doing this anyway for certain things, like certain things that I'm researching for myself. I might as well just document it. It'll take me an extra hour. I can publish that, and I mean, that to me feels like the kind of blogging that makes me excited. Like the reason I wanted to start blogging in the first place. It's just
Right.
the stuff I'm doing in life
Yeah.
and writing about it. When I was a photographer, it was easy for me to do from my photography business while I was like actively working as a photographer. I would just write about what was going on, like what I was doing for clients, what I was doing for the business, what I was doing with other photographers, just blog that stuff. And I enjoy that kind of blogging. I feel like it's kind of died a little bit.
Yeah.
But
Oh, completely.
I'm kind of one of those that wants to bring it back a little bit. I think, the whole movement with threads
Yeah.
showed. I feel like the hype has died down a lot, but there's
You can post
something,
links.
yeah, that people really showed they want something a little different than what's on Instagram and what's on Facebook and
Yeah.
TikTok, or YouTube. They want to have the ability to sort of post different formats of content in some sort of short form. But I don't know. I feel like a blog is literally threads, but long form, right? If I want to do something short form, I might use a social media app. But if I want to do something long form to really truly document something and write out all of my ideas and opinions about it, screenshots, pictures, like all that stuff, a blog post is the perfect way to do that. And I just feel like
And have
not
it
enough people are utilizing their blogs.
last longer than like 30 minutes online.
Yeah. It's interesting because I mean, I want photographers to do this kind of thing, but not every photographer is like, that makes a lot of sense for someone who's like a solopreneur, single operator, or maybe, a couple or something like that, who's a photography business, especially if they're using their name. Makes a lot of sense to use their blog like that. But then, I mean, I've worked with plenty of people who are studios of multiple photographers, and or someone who's just like, I don't really need to write down everything. Although I will say, like today I was doing a consult with a boudoir photographer who, on their blog, most of it was testimonials. People who would come in, she would have them do a video testimonial at their reveal. um, and she was just like blogging those, or like some sort of unique session or whatever, like events that she was doing and things like that. So it's kind of like studio news, like who's been here, what have they been saying, what have been working on. I liked that, so it's like
Yeah.
I feel like that social aspect of blogging has kind of died off, and I would like to see that come back. So I'm trying to find ways to encourage people to post that kind of stuff.
I was reminiscing yesterday about blogging in the era of like Google Reader, and like how you could hit publish and like you would see kind of traffic start to trickle in to a brand new piece of content that you'd never shared anywhere. That was pretty cool. I missed that. I really hope that Threads and like potential Fediverse integration brings that back.
I think it's there are circles where that's the norm still. Medium, for example, or even what's it called? Stack something.
Yeah, Stack Overflow or the other
No,
what's or
it's
yeah,
Substack, I think. Is that
Substack.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
There are people who are doing long form writing, and it's kind of social, and it's there. And I guess I'm not in those circles, and I'm maybe just trying to find them. But it would be nice, I think, in the photography industry. That's one of the reasons we're here as a hub for that kind of thing. I'd love to get more people who we kind of are getting it a little bit in the membership, in the content thread. I mean, so far we've done it for 2 months, and each month it's up to 60 plus comments each month. So there's a lot of people posting and a lot of people giving a lot of feedback. So that's sort of that, I posted an article and some of the students commented on that. And I love seeing the conversations happening in the comment section of these posts, that if you know that there's a handful of people who are going to comment, you can write it in such a way that encourages conversation, which makes it more social, right? But you kind of need to know that there's going to be people reading it, not just random people searching, but like, that you've got some sort of group of either friends or followers or something that's going to like come look at your content and read it. And then I feel like you can start to write it in a more engaging way. At least that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know.
yeah.
It's refreshing to not just write to searchers, because searchers have such an interesting mindset, right? If you go to Google, you're trying to get something done. You want something fast. You want information. You're doing research. You want a problem solved. That kind of content, you need to be specific with how you write it and how you format it, and it needs to serve searchers. We talk about this all the time, about serving searcher intent and serving searchers. And I think it's still, I'm just going to keep yelling it because I think people are missing the fact that whenever you optimize for search engines, you're actually optimizing for searchers. And again, they have a specific kind of mindset and set of needs, and you need to make sure that you're covering those on those pages. But that being said, like, sometimes I like to write things that are not serving searchers. Like, so for example, with that Pokemon site, maybe I would write, the best binders for Pokemon cards, yes, that would be like to searchers, because searchers are doing research and they want information. I might write an article on there that's to searchers that's like how to price your Pokemon collection or something like that. But also, I might just write, the best games you can play if you stream on whatnot or something like that, which is, it's so, I'm not necessarily writing it to searchers. I'm writing it to people that I'm going to share it with in Discord or something like that. And I know they're going to come and they're going to comment and we're going to talk about it in Discord. Just, it's interesting. It's interesting that that's like it's a different kind of dynamic than, like you said, when there was Google Reader and you just like subscribe to a whole bunch of blogs and got a news feed every morning.
Right. I'm trying to go through my threads, my replies to find the article. I think I found it. I did. But basically, it's a perfect example of this, where when I'm searching for something on Google, I'm so impatient and I just want the answer instantly when I arrive on the page. But this Eugene, I think it's Eugene Wee blog, he blogs about technology. And he wrote this incredible article about kind of like it's like the rise of nations, but with social media platforms instead, or something. Like, it's called How to Blow Up a Timeline. And I was so like just captivated by his writing style and the narrative that he made about like Twitter dying and Instagram kind of dying and threads potentially maybe being something that could replace them. It was like a probably 20,000 word article, and I just like read it from start to finish. And I missed that.
I haven't done that in a while. Read a long blog post like that. There's some that I was reading for a while that I would read everything that's a 10,000 word plus article.
Yeah.
But that's interesting because I think so many people are looking for just the bite-sized pieces, but it's a different thing when you're writing something that's long form like that.
And it goes back to our common talks about like AI versus actual experience in writing. Like, there's no way I would have read 20,000 words of obvious chat GPT drivel, but
yep.
I was more than happy. I would have sat down and read like an entire novel of his writing if it existed. But.
Mm-hmm. Well, if anyone's here, leave us some questions. We haven't done a whole lot of Q&A yet. So if you want us to answer any SEO questions that you have, look at your site. You got us for a few more minutes. It's like we have, this is cool. It shows me we have 3 people on Facebook right now and 1 on YouTube.
Nice.
Kind of cool.
Yeah. New updates with Sitesea. I just hit publish on 2 different installation packages.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to trial them. Okay. We'll see. I don't want to overwhelm myself between still being in elopement and wedding season and doing Feel Your Photos and installing people's Sitesea sites. But I have noticed very basic questions, people kind of not knowing where to go once they have the theme. And I want to be able to make that process as turnkey as possible for them. So we have a basic install, and that's like, you have to use Cloudways or any host that we actually approve, because I want to make sure that it's something that's going to give a good experience. But I install a staging site, install the theme, do some basic tweaks, make sure everything's set up properly, and then hand it off to you. That's the basic package. The more advanced is going to actually, you can give me a portfolio, a folder of your portfolio imagery. I'll replace all the imagery throughout the main pages, do a full WordPress import, colors, fonts, etc. Do some performance optimization, do some basic SEO optimization, configuration of a plugin.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's not bad. And so I think
that's published. We can find that deal now.
It is, yeah. And those, the first one is like you have one recap call at the end. The second one has 2 calls and then an SEO call afterwards to look at a continued SEO strategy.
Nice.
And then if you still want more, I think you should get the Feel Your Photo membership, jump into the weekly office hours, and we can help you. But
how do I find that on the site?
That's a good question.
You're like published, but
yeah, actually I need to I can post the links, but it's sitecdesign.com / child themes. I need to fix that. And then / quick setup package is the first one. And the second is, I might even be renaming these after the call because I used setup for one and installation for the other, but the other is the advanced installation package.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. It looks like we have questions.
Yay. We got.
Okay. So, it's David on one. First time being able to hop on one of these, checking in. Hey, David. How's it going? And then another question from Malachi. Looking to possibly move to Flagstaff, Arizona soon. He's very established in Colorado. Any tips for ranking in the new area and trying to keep some rankings in Colorado? I have quick ideas on that.
All right, go for it.
So Colorado, I think I would be okay forfeiting the Colorado elopement photographer type rankings if you have those, while still trying to maintain specific area or location guides or resources that you have. So if you maybe rank for Telluride elopement photographer, I don't think that's going to be disrupted by this sort of move in any significant way. Moving into Flagstaff, I think we can take a peek at some maybe basic keyword research and who's ranking there already. But that's probably going to be a market that has less competition than you had in Colorado, where you can likely rank for Flagstaff elopement photographer, if that's a term you want to target, or just Arizona elopement photographer, in ways that are much more difficult in Colorado. But then it's going to be quickly getting out the different associated guides for Arizona, the different main elopement areas in Arizona, finding those niche locations that you want to talk about, blog about, and then maybe some Arizona specific content, as it is a fairly different market than Colorado. Instead of tips for elopements in on tall mountains, it might be more deserty and high desert tips and things like that.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I'm always telling people you can't have everything. You can't keep your foot in one and sort of try to hold on to it while you move headfirst into the other. You got to go
Right.
all in, or you have to be okay with losing some of the Colorado rankings, I think, personally.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you'll lose everything just because, but I think that a lot of people end up getting the worst of all of it because they try to get greedy and have keep everything, and then that ends up diluting it all, and it's just not good. Whereas
I'm going to share my screen.
Who go all in on the hang on, I gotta push it over on the new thing will find that easy.
Right. I mean, that's easy.
What does that look like compared to Colorado? What's the number they're giving that?
Man, without looking at it, what's your guess?
My guess? I don't use Ahrefs, so I don't know what their scale is going to be. I'm going to say 17.
Okay. I'm going to guess in the 40s.
Okay.
What?
Oh, no.
5.
Yeah.
I think this is also where tools are silly.
It's busted.
Busted. Because go try to outrank Vow of the Wild, Nina, Thousand Peaks, Simply Eloped, Adventure Instead.
Yeah.
That's not a 5. Come on.
Not at all. Not at all.
Likewise, I don't know if this is really a 1.
It's easier than 5.
Yeah. And really, I mean, looking at this, what do you notice about the pages that are ranking?
It's internal pages.
Internal pages. And there's one directory, Simply Eloped, right? They're not a directory, but a mega corp. Yeah, there is this Arizona Elopement Collective ranking with a homepage, but outside of that, it's just guides to Arizona or best places to elope. You have Wandering Weddings. Not too difficult here. Domain rating 0, domain rating 2, domain rating 10 in first place. Things that I don't often put a ton of weight into, but it is a valid signal, I think. Mm-hmm. Another option, Malachi, is maybe you leverage paid ads while you're moving. So maybe you need to run paid ads in Arizona, or maybe you run paid ads to your existing Colorado content while you change the site over to Arizona, so you can still get some value from those existing resources, things like that. Good question. Moving markets is hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I feel like there was another thing I was gonna ask you about, Dylan, but I can't remember it.
Yeah, I'm excited for, let's see, new WordPress changes. Oh, new Cadence blocks, new Cadence Pro blocks.
I've heard them talking about it, but I have not seen anything. When is that happening? Or did it already happen?
I believe it launched this week.
Okay.
Potentially.
I think a lot of people were super confused about that. I feel like they didn't do a very good job of communicating what was going on. I thought I understood from the beginning. I think I do. They basically released Cadence Blocks 3, the free version, but the Pro didn't get the update to the same thing as the basic blocks, right? And so now it's just like catching up to that.
Yeah. I would have done it differently.
I know, because like I was using some of the Pro blocks and I'm like, why does it look like this? This is old. This interface feels weird. So it's all like caught up to the like 3 tabs in the settings, and that's nice.
And then they added a few extras. I'd have to go look at their list of the new changes. That I remember looking at it earlier this week and thinking that there's some pretty cool stuff. So definitely worth looking at. Also, I think their sale is going on until like the end of this week or this weekend. We're 30% off on Cadence Pro.
Nice.
But
anything new coming up? Like what are we gonna?
Yeah,
I guess this next month, my focus is still office hours calls. I'm really working on we've got a few people who have joined the membership recently who are either rebuilding on Cadence or, tweaking. I think this week we've had like 3 or 4 people who have either used Caldera or the starter template or some other Cadence child theme. Now, I'd be curious if anyone's here listening, if you have questions about WordPress or something you'd like for us to publish, let us know. We would love that kind of feedback on blog posts we can write, tutorials we can make. How can we make using WordPress easier? And then in general, make you love using your website. So if there's things that you find that are a pain that you don't like about your website, we want to hear that kind of feedback because I think it helps us to create. I want to keep creating this content around websites and WordPress. And I know Dylan's kind of going in that direction as well. So it's like, I think we need to keep publishing some stuff around that. So if people have questions, if you're in that camp, let us know because we will be happy to. I like to keep the feedback loop pretty close and listen to what people want and then see what we can create to help with that. But yeah, this week, those people that joined the office hours, like yesterday we had one and she was like, I cannot figure out how to get this section to do what I want it to do. And it was actually one that was like, I think it was in Caldera, and it was like, wanted to use it slightly differently. And it's just like coming in and being able to share the screen or share a login or something and just get in there and be like, oh yeah, just you want to make this have a minimum height and then make this have like these little things that it takes a while to figure out all the nuances of using something like Cadence blocks. And
once you
don't need to become an expert to be able to edit your site, which is nice. Like you can jump in and start working with it pretty quickly, but then after you use it for a while, you start to feel like an expert at using your site. It feels like, oh, I can do anything. I know how to do this. I know how to do that. And then you get creative and you're like, oh, I can make it do this by using that block. And like, I don't know, I just look at things differently once I start to learn all the little details. So I love that people can come in and like ask the questions and watch where the settings are and be like, okay, now I see how to do it. So that's been really fun.
Totally. And that's Malachi with I love Cadence, but don't know how to use all the design features. Anything on Cadence and how to achieve specific designs or how to design certain kinds of blocks would be great.
Yeah, maybe we should do some simple tutorials. Like I thought about we have a couple of people a couple of weeks ago on one of the office hours calls, we were talking about tables of contents that use visuals like thumbnails.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a couple of examples, and I was like, if I just built a little table of contents section that has thumbnails, it had like some arrows, and it's kind of cool the way that it was built. And I think it used that overlay link.
Yeah.
And so it's like, build that, do it as a YouTube tutorial, and then put that section in the cloud library for members. I think that'd be really cool. So
Yeah,
let's
I like that
people
too.
who are interested in the membership have a reason to like join and get it for, they can just click and insert it on their website. Or if you're a DIY person who's trying to like really learn it, you can just follow along as we do it in the video. That's what I used to do a lot of that whenever I was a photographer. Like a lot of times I wanted to just watch the tutorial, like someone editing in Lightroom, and like figure out which sliders did what. And then sometimes I just wanted presets, right? Like I'm like, I don't want to do all that work. I just want to press a button and have that done. But in the beginning, it felt good to like actually learn what they were doing to make the presets. So I liked when people who sold presets would also do tutorials on like how they made the presets. That was kind of cool.
Right. Yeah, you learn so much from that. Yeah, very similar to like getting a cloud library block and seeing how a designer put it together and how many ways there are to build the same kind of layout.
That's been an interesting thing too. As I've looked at people who use different child themes, I'm like, wow, people do a lot of different things to build these sections.
Some of them are great.
Yeah, some are great. And some, like, I'm like, wow, that's a smart way to do this. And others, I'm like, ooh, I would not do it like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we have a few more people in here. So if you have any questions, now's a great time to ask. We're going to be jumping off here pretty soon. But if you have any questions about SEO, anything about your website, want us to look at anything for you, now's the time. Get it into the comments.
I fixed a lot of contact forms this week. A lot of SMTP. I have a hard time with that acronym for some reason. Yeah. People running into that.
Yeah. Did you talk to Nick? He had asked
I did.
I told him to
get
in contact with you because you published that YouTube video.
I sent him that video, yeah. His situation was somewhat unique, and I understand what he did, but he tried to use SMTP to send from his Gmail address, which you can't verify a Google server to send from your website.
Interesting. Okay.
Well,
I'm not seeing any questions. If anybody gets one here in the last second, then we'll answer it. But other than that, do this again next week, Dylan?
Yeah, I'm down. Next week I will be in Idaho, so you'll see Idaho backdrops.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll make that work. And if anybody has any topics or questions they want us to talk about, either of you have a favorite metrics to track with your website, something you like to look at in Search Console. What you think about that, Dylan?
Yeah. Since the majority of my traffic comes from Google search, I primarily look at Search Console. I very rarely open up Google Analytics, though I still think there is some value in analytics, obviously. And so I'm primarily just looking at clicks, like daily clicks from Google. I know what range my site's going to be in. If it's significantly below that, I'm starting to wonder. If it's significantly above that, I'm trying to look and see where the traffic's coming from and why. But yeah, if I'm getting really granular on a piece of content that I've been optimizing or trying to improve, I might go look at average ranking and see, is it trending in the right direction? So yeah, daily clicks, do the report where you look at maybe like the last 28 days over the previous and compare to see most increased click pages or most losing clicks. And then once you look in the pages themselves, looking at individual queries can be helpful. And then turning on average ranking for those as well.
I feel like I've wanted for so long to make some kind of tool that connects to Search Console and then gives a better dashboard. Now is the time I should just do it for myself.
Easy.
I don't need to do it like as a tool that everyone can use even, but just like using ChatGPT, I should be able to create. I got to the point where I connected to Google, which is actually kind of complicated,
Mhm.
connecting to the Search Console API,
Yep.
because you have to basically get an app set up, and then it has to have the right kind of permissions enabled, and then you can use your API key. But until then, you can't. And then even then, until your app is like reviewed, you have a different amount of permissions that you can ask for. So like, you know how when you use your Google account, it'll like list out what the app can do with your information. You're very limited until your app has been like actually reviewed by Google. So if you get to the point where you're creating an app that is released out into the wild, then you can like ask for more permissions. But as I'm creating something in like a dev environment, all you can get is like really basic read access.
Right.
I think that was something I was running into. Maybe I'm making some of
Yeah,
this up, but it's that kind of stuff where it's like it's a little complicated. But I feel like I got to the point where I was at least able to pull down some data. So now I just need to take that and format it into what I'm trying to track. I feel like
yeah,
I honestly haven't been tracking my own like blogs that closely lately, and I feel like it would be nice to get back in. Maybe that's part of the reason why. It's because I don't feel like I have a great dashboard, and I mean I can certainly look at Search Console, but
totally.
I guess Fuel Your Photos is the only one that I'm really even interested in the traffic, but we haven't put a whole lot of emphasis in driving search traffic to that website. It's
Hmm.
been a lot of Facebook and podcast, and like we're trying to get people through those channels where I haven't put a whole lot of effort into like writing new articles. We try to publish something at least every couple of months, but I don't have a site where I'm like actively publishing on the same website. I really need that in my life, I think.
Yeah,
That would probably give me a better
it definitely,
sense on this question.
yeah, it definitely drives me to keep learning SEO. Um, I have something I just noticed looking at my traffic and
All
looking
right.
at my rankings. My ranking for Portland elopement photographer average increased from page 4 to page 2 this week, correlating with when I published the changes to my Yosemite post and Big Sur
Interesting.
post. Do you think that the elopement topic is something that Google trusts me more on now? Maybe.
Oh, I have such a hard time getting a sense on this because I feel like if you see a change that fast, it's almost it's pretty rare for in my opinion for it to be like a direct correlation that
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
Not that it can't
I
happen
agree.
though. We
I'm
certainly
gonna I'm
see
gonna keep
things.
watching, but yeah, it's
Hmm.
interesting. It's been in that like page 4 area since April, and it hasn't been that high. Let's see. Wow, it it raised it increased the multiple pages the day I posted Yosemite. Like it
Okay.
spiked up, and then it dropped back down a little bit, and then it came back up. That's It's interesting. I'll keep
It
watching.
is. Mm-hmm. It's hard whenever sometimes you'd make a change and you feel like, oh, we can see immediately whether that was impactful, and then other times you make a change and you wait 9 months with nothing
And
happening,
then
and suddenly you get
yeah,
like all the results. I wish there was something a little bit more. I like to tell people what I'm looking for is any sort of movement over the course of a couple of weeks. Like I want to see, in 2 weeks, did something change? I don't care if it went down in ranking. Like did we see that like something's changing here after the changes that I made? That's usually the first positive signal. And then I usually expect it to be like slow over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, but I have seen quite a few people lately who will take something that we talk about, implement it, and the next day be like, my ranking's completely changed. So, you have any thoughts on like why? What would make something more likely to work immediately versus long term?
yeah. I think there are, like, if you understand like the basics of like the Google ranking process, where there are hundreds of different factors, and they are they multiplied or multiplied, and you might have one factor that is just like absolutely crushing your ranking score because it's effectively saying like put this to 0, like it's you're multiplying by 0.01 or something. It's like you get 1% of your previous score,
Mm,
and you fix that, and maybe it's like now it's give them 98% of that previous score,
mm,
and in doing so, like your ranking can change overnight, and that's maybe like a homepage title change or uh, content that actually looks interesting or proofs authority, or I don't know what major change would be like that, but um, I could see that, especially on smaller pieces of content that are very targeted, where you really make it clear what like that you're covering the intent well with the content through
mhm,
maybe a better heading structure, better titles, better content itself. Um, those changes I'll typically see, like you'll index it and maybe in the next day or two you'll see a change, and then Google tends to erase that change or take it back a few days later, and then maybe a week or two later after that it comes back.
mhm.
Um, that's like the typical process I see on that. But um, like you said, though, I've also had so many more competitive guides and pages where it's like keep improving, keep building links. 2 years later, you'll be number one, but
Right.
it's going to be a slog.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with yours over the
Yeah,
next few weeks with
I
that
know.
change. It's pretty cool.
Ranking for the term I don't care about. Cool.
Any more
Well, great.
questions? Anyone have anything to say? We've got we always have more people at the end than we have at the beginning. There's had time to see it pop up in Facebook and in the group and stuff. We'll figure this out probably after the summer. Once I know I'll be getting back on a little bit more regular schedule here, starting in the next couple of weeks. Whenever the kids start doing school again, Dylan, we'll have to have a talk and see if we can get this on like a official weekly calendar so
Yeah.
people know when to show up. But and also maybe we'll have some topics lined up or something like that. But I would love to keep doing Q&A. We just need people asking questions. Malachi, thank you for being here and asking questions today.
Yeah. So good
Uh,
to see you.
and for everyone else watching, thanks for taking the time to stop by. But if you have any questions, drop them in. We will even maybe see them in the replay, but definitely we'll be back doing this again. Of course, anytime you're interested in having access to us and asking questions all the time, you can check out the membership. We have multiple calls per week in office hours and a special private group where we answer questions that come in through there to try to not let any questions go unanswered in that group. So, yeah, if you need
Awesome.
anything, just let us know. And otherwise, we'll see you next time.
See you.